Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday morning edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. One day out from the start of April, everybody. We wrap up the great month of March here today on a Tuesday morning. Johnny Mac, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Gearing up for draft month. April coming up, and of course, April Fool's today. Going to make that announcement early, so be careful of those fake AJ trades that are probably going to pop up.
The fake AJ Brown trade accounts they have been preparing their April Fool's tweets, everybody. So do not fall for them. All right, good stuff, John. We got plenty of stuff going on here in Eagle Land as the owners' meetings yesterday. Nick Sirianni spoke after we obviously talked extensively about Howie Roseman's comments. So the owners' meetings are wrapping up today, and Jeffrey Lurie is set to speak today. Is that right, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, he'll speak at the end of the meeting. So his annual sort of State of the Union address of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think I'm sure there'll be some AJ stuff in there. There'll be some football stuff in there, but a lot of stadium stuff, a lot of things, a lot of business stuff. So some people will be interested. Some people will probably not, but I do think it'll be in because, if you think about last season when he had his little meeting with AJ Brown, that's when AJ kind of shut down from talking to the media. So he'll be asked about that. And
he hasn't spoken yet since the end of the season.
Well, he's spoken to different, he's been on podcasts with players and things like that, and the Wink podcast with Gronkowski. And
no, I mean Jeffrey Lurie.
Oh no, Jeffrey. No,
Jeffrey, nothing from him yet.
Yeah, this might be the only time all year you'll hear from Jeffrey Lurie. Sometimes he pops in, hasn't done it in a few years, right before the season, and he'll talk, but rarely. So this will probably be the only time you hear from Jeffrey Lurie this year publicly.
Well, we'll see what he has to say. He will probably talk some business, but he will probably also address the season last year. I don't know how much Jeffrey Lurie will say. He's obviously a tactful guy, and I don't think he's going to go out there and making as many headlines as we would like. But I am curious to hear or try and get a read on what he thought of the season last year, John. It was a very, I don't call it a controversial season, but, the team had high expectations. It was there was a lot of debate, a lot of things that went on with the season that was, the subject of discussion, from Kevin Patullo to A.J. Brown to the passing offense to all those different things. And then they fell flat when it came to the playoffs. I'm curious to try and get a read on what Jeffrey Lurie thought of the year. Like you said, is it, we're the worst 11-win team in the history of teams and we act like we're 5, or is it we just didn't go the distance and we got some things to clean up and, we'll make another run. I don't know if we'll get that answer today from him, but I'd like to try and see if we can tell.
Yeah, he'll be asked, certainly, because and he's very, as you said, tactful. So he'll explain as he typically does, his style of management, which is to ask questions, which I've explained on the show numerous times. So I think you'll hear stuff about like that one. Because he's going to be asked about Stoutland and things like that, leaving the organization. So you'll get some of that, but it'll be very Jeffrey Lurie-ish. So you're not going to get concrete answers by him. You're not going to get him to say, yeah, I forced him to fire Kevin Patullo. He's just not that guy, but hopefully some interesting nuggets come of it, but I wouldn't hold my breath unless you're, excited about business news and things like that, which is, stories. But I think most people are more involved with the football end, and as he should. And I think that's one of his strengths. He tries to stay out of that as much as possible. Because you see owners who get involved and don't have the expertise to get involved, it generally doesn't go too well.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Lurie definitely is a little bit involved. He's had his fair share of moments, but he's also had some good moments too that I'm sure he hangs his hat on. I saw the NFL, I think it was the NFL account, put up a video yesterday or 2 days ago, John, of because they start to promote the NFL draft coming up. So they do some big moments from the draft, and they'll put up bites. And one moment they put up recently was the Cooper DeJean pick in the draft room. And they kind of showed Howie, and they showed Jeffrey Lurie sitting there talking to him, asking Quay, how about Carolina? Can we go to Carolina? Because if you guys remember, Carolina was the 39th pick. The Eagles were trying to trade there. They got to the 40th pick, and the Rams jumped 39. So Jeffrey Lurie's kind of talking to him. So I'm sure there's some moments that Jeffrey hangs his hat on. But what do you think of the questioning style of leadership? Kind of is passive aggressive, right?
Yeah, I've mentioned that. I kind of think, and by no means do I think it's unique to Jeffrey Lurie. I think with all powerful people, even if they have good intentions, they don't understand that what kind of weight a question has when it's coming from, the owner of the team.
Right.
And the best example of that was Doug Peterson after the famous upset in Lambeau Field when he got the question, why did we run it so much? And Doug was like perplexed. He's like, we just went and beat Aaron Rodgers, who was at the height of his game still at that point, and at Lambeau Field. I mean, that's a pretty good win, pretty significant win. And I don't even think Jeffrey was doing it for the reason that it was taken. That's him. He's just asking questions about what went on. But the weight behind it, I think, is what he doesn't sometimes understand. I don't think many powerful people understand that they could have no ulterior motives, but if they express something in question form, it's going to be taken like, oh, is this a suggestion? And it might not be, but I think that's something he should always keep in mind. And I've said and written about that for years. Hopefully he's seen it. Maybe he does take it. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, if he says, something stinks or something, that he's not going to obviously word it that way, but it's going to carry a lot of weight and people are going to change things because of it.
Well, we'll see what happens. If you guys remember last year, Jeffrey Lurie, Rasputin reminds me of this in the chat. Jeffrey Lurie last year, John, led the group that on the tush push. Remember, he brought out Jason Kelsey and everything and all those different things to kind of get the tush push to remain alive. I wonder if he'll be asked about that now it's off the docket. And I don't know. Does he think his two offensive linemen that were banged up and spent the summer in spent the offseason so far in Medellin, Colombia to get stem cell treatment?
Yeah.
Does he think that has anything to do after saying that the health was not an issue?
He might get the question. I think it would be later after the beat guys, but he might get the question from national guys, but it'll be very superfluous. It'll be about, because it's always been very superfluous. Like, it's never been a deep discussion. It's always that, oh, it's not really about safety. Oh, they just hate the Eagles. It's always been about that, and it will continue to be about that. So the more substantive, like, that's a legitimate, interesting question that we should get an answer to. I doubt it'll be asked, to be honest, because nobody talks about that play other than Birds 365. I'm going to pat myself in a substantive fashion. It's all bullshit. And it will continue to be bullshit.
Out there, John. A lot of bullshit conversation out there.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, it'll continue to be bullshit.
Yeah, well, no doubt about it. Can't fix it all, Johnny Mac. It is what it is. All right, John, we get a little closer here to the NFL draft. For 23 days away, 3 weeks and 2 days. So it's Thursday of 3 weeks from now where it will kick off. Round one will kick off. We will see where the Eagles go in round one, round two, and round three. And then obviously day three on Saturday, what they do at the top there. So that's going to be the most interesting part here as we turn the page into April. after today. But there was some things that popped up yesterday. The Eagles signed a player, John, for a 2-year deal. I always think that's interesting when you're at this phase of free agency and you see a 2-year deal pop up. Most of the time you're seeing a 1-year deal. So Eagles signed a linebacker yesterday, John. Tell us about the latest signing from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, it's a different type of signing. He's not an unrestricted free agent. It's a very young player. Chandler Martin, linebacker out of Memphis, good player in college, 2-time All-American, but was undersized. So he's undrafted, signed by Baltimore. Cut, was on the practice squad. So when you're on the practice squad, you either get a futures contract or you become free to sign with anybody, but you're not unrestricted in the sense of everybody else the Eagles have been signing, which is you're vested veteran, your contract expired. So it's a lot different, and that's why you see the 2 years. Part of the 2 years is also tore his ACL on November 27th last season. So he's not going to be ready. 9 months would be right around the start of the season. Obviously, we know Vic Fangio. This is a young player. He's not going to have an off season. It's not going to be relevant this year. I've compared it to the defensive Willie Lampkin from last year, who was hurt with the Rams. A little bit different timing. Rams waived him injured. Eagles claimed him anyway. So it's not apples to apples, but very similar from a player perspective. It's a young player they like. Probably not going to get a good look at him. Certainly not going to get a good look at him this spring and summer. And so I think this is a longer term potential depth signing, but they just liked the player and brought him in. You know, it's a winning outside the margins type of thing. Get a look at him. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not a big deal.
Very low risk. They've done well on these types of signings. We talked about one yesterday and Isaiah Rodgers. Now that was a little bit of a different scenario because of the suspension, but you remember they stored him on the roster for a year while he served his suspension, and then he obviously made a big impact on the Super Bowl team.
Well, he was suspended, so he wasn't even allowed to be on the roster. They essentially just paid him to sit at home and not be involved to get the leg up because they knew that when he was cleared to come back, he's a pretty good player, and there would have been a bidding war. So, and that was one of the reasons they were disappointed they lost him because, you know, as an organization, they said, man, we did you a big favor. Like nobody else was looking at you. You were radioactive and at least give us a chance to match the offer. That was kind of the thought process of the Eagles. But, you know, Isaiah was never made big money before, and he got a decent contract. So it's understandable from his part as well. But, yeah, I mean, they did. Nobody was signing Isaiah Rodgers because he was suspended. People don't think that way.
You don't think the Eagles hold any disdain toward him for that, do they? Or just kind of a.
I think very similar. I think they were a little disappointed, but they're over it certainly. They wanted him back, so they were a little disappointed. Yeah.
Well, I mean, considering he got what 2 years, $15 million or something. So that's less than Tariq Woolen's making this year on a 1 year basis. So maybe if they had him, they don't have to go that route. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and they would have been better off last year. Let's be honest, but. Yeah, it is. You don't get everybody back, and they didn't want to go to 2 years to begin with. Now they never got the opportunity to go to 2 years, so maybe they would have. But he never came back. His camp never came back to the Eagles, so that's the danger of free agency. But I do think that the bigger highlight is literally 31 teams don't even think that way. Like they're not going to pay somebody, even though it's a 1 year deal for a veteran minimum. They're not going to pay somebody to sit at home on suspension. The Eagles did, and they got he was a really important contributor. That's why, the reason, why can't I think of the Patriots corner? My God, he's been around for the Patriots corner they signed. Former Patriots corner. having an elder moments. But they had a really bad situation last year at backup corner. One, nobody sees the job, right? So eventually Adoree Jackson settled down. But the year prior, they had Slay, Mitchell, and Isaiah Rodgers, and there were a couple concussions in there, and Rodgers had to play quite a bit, and he played well. So they had this really good cornerback three, and Jonathan Jones that's why he's here. That's why he's here, to replicate that. Now, a little bit different. He's much older, much more veteran, but they gave him, $2 million. That's an indication, guaranteed, fully guaranteed. He's going to be on the roster. He's going to be the backup cornerback behind Quinyon Mitchell and Reek Woolen, and outside corner. And that's what they're trying to replicate, what they had with Isaiah Rodgers.
Good stuff there. All right, Johnny Mac. Nick Sirianni spoke yesterday at the owners' meeting, shed light on a couple different things. Kind of per usual, Nick, where he doesn't say too much, but I thought he did say a couple things that caught my eye about. He spoke about the coaching staff, obviously the hiring process, too many cooks in the kitchen. He also talked about his conversations with Jalen Hurts and some of the players at this time of the year. Before I muddy it, John, and go to what I thought was interesting, anything you took away from the head coach's conversation with the media yesterday at the owners' meetings?
HJ is a member of the Eagles.
Same line. He must have got the same index card that Howie got, huh?
Yeah. No, I joke. I guess the biggest thing I took from it was Stoutland, because he had the goofy Lane Johnson comment. And, I think Nick was obviously, we've moved on with the guys from our staff. So he was talking about the guys who left. So don't expect Jeff Stoutland back. I think that was the most honest part of the conversation. Nothing's changed. AJ's an Eagle, as I mentioned. They do have confidence in Devontae Smith. If he has to be a wide receiver one, which if you listen to the show, you already know that. Did talk about Reek Woolen's history and, said we like edgy players and that kind of stuff. We'll see how that works out. Very talented player. I do think, it's astonishing to me. It really is. Like, he got asked, the conversation with Jalen Hurts in the offseason. And I really think, forget about fans. I think there's a bunch of media people who don't understand you can't talk to these guys about football in the offseason.
Is it legitimately legislated into the?
Yes.
Yeah, that they're not allowed to talk ball and talk playbook, talk none.
No, very, 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 very limited. You're not allowed.
I really understand that, to be honest with you. I don't know that's a necessary rule. I get it is one, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The head coach can't talk to his fucking quarterback. He hired a new coordinator. What do you mean he can't talk to his quarterback about it?
The reason, because in the old days, you lose your final game and the quarterback's back in there the next day. I talked about this with John DiFilippo back in the day. It's like you're back in. So if they have they're going to take advantage of it. So, what all the little NFL, and I've said a lot of times, all the little NFLPA wins over the years are never about the money. It's always about the quality of life. It's about, time off and things like that.
Right.
So I'm glad Nick explained, it's important for these guys, he said, to get some time away from us. And the conversations he's had is more about checking in, how everything is going. And then he said, because right now we're limited by league rules in what we can talk. That's, he didn't say by league rules. I'm adding that. And what we can talk to them about, everything like that, but when they get here April 20th, they can start, having those types of discussions. There's plenty of time, but yeah, I think there's a bunch of people that Why, no, I don't think. There's a bunch of people. I mean, fans say it all the time, like, well, which I get that part of it. Like somebody comes in to sign their contract, and it's like, I love that the guys are in the building. It's like they're not in the building to do football stuff.
Right.
They're signing, some guys who live around maybe come to the gym and work out. You can do stuff like that, but they got cameras all over these facilities. If the NFLPA follows agreement, I mean, there's legit, like, you can't do it. And the NFLPA is, especially if they get a complaint, is going to make a big deal out of it. So I think people need to understand this is not the time they're talking about football. So when you hear about, like, Saquon, God love him because he's a pro, and he's talking about Sean Mannion's offense is great. Then in the same, he gets a follow-up. Well, what do you like? Well, I don't really know. I haven't talked to him about it. He's not allowed to talk to him about it.
Right.
But
so, answer me this, because it's obvious that the legislation exists. So I'm not pushing back on you on that. But like, can Sean Mannion deliver Jalen the playbook? He can't deliver him anything? Like, he can't even. Like, what's the scope of this rule?
The scope of this rule is that's an interesting question. I don't have the answer to that. Maybe is the best I can do. I can ask. But you're not allowed to have discussions about football. Now, I mean, it's like tampering. Is that,
right. Is it going to stop everybody? Right.
Yeah. So, but realistic, certainly around the facility, can you text on your personal phone? I don't think the FBI is showing up. So I'm sure there's little things like that. But you certainly can't get together with the offensive coordinator at the facility and, go over film and go over the playbook. Right. I can tell you that. And, most of the guys are on vacation or doing stuff or doing their personal stuff or working out. And a lot of guys are not even in the area because it is their time and they don't want to be bothered with that stuff. But the quarterback's a little bit different. So I get that. But no, not substantive. Not anything of substance. As far as can he send him the playbook? Maybe. I'll try to get an answer to that, but I don't know if anybody knows.
There's no restrictions on the coaches, right? Like Nick and Mannion.
Oh no, they work every day. Yeah, he'll give them a time off before training camp. That's when he gives them some time. They're there every day. Like right now, they're working on draft stuff. When they come back. Well, coaches are here. Vic was at the Phillies game, obviously. The only ones out there are Jeffrey, Howie, Nick, but they're working.
Nick was at the Phillies game last night. They got clobbered. I think
it might have been 2 days. It was recently.
Yeah, they got beat last night. I think it was 13-2. I'm like, oh yeah, this could be a long Philly. It's early, but it says off to a bad start for the Phillies.
It's early.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in that team at the moment, John.
They'll figure it out. It's they're going to win 90+ games, so they'll be.
You think so?
Yeah. Baseball's just, I mean,
it's so long.
Yeah. I mean, the good teams wear you down, and they got good pitching, and they'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, there is, and that's why I kind of chuckled at Saquon because God, like I said, he knows he's doing interviews. Like I said, he's a pro. He knows what people want to hear, and he wants to prop up the new offensive coordinator, and but it wasn't even out of malice. The guy doing the interview probably doesn't understand the rules either, and he's like, "Well, what do you like about it?" He's like, "Well, I don't really know." He doesn't. It's not that time, and there'll be plenty of time for that. So and it's no different than every other team. You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yep, that's a big part of it. John, Nick Sirianni also spoke, about the hiring of the coaching staff. I thought there were some interesting, kind of very Nick-esque answers. But I happen to think the topic itself is interesting, where they have all these different coaches. They interviewed 17 different candidates, and 3 of them ended up hired. One of them became the offensive coordinator. One of them became the pass game coordinator, and one of them became the a senior offensive assistant, I believe, is what Jared Johnson's role is. So I thought Nick's answer on that was interesting. Where whenever you get an opportunity to add a good coach, I've never thought it was a bad thing to add that. But do you personally, John, believe that there is some credence to the thought process that maybe there's too many cooks in the kitchen?
No, simply now. I think there's too many assistant coaches in the NFL. I think it's gotten ridiculous.
Right.
Now, God bless them. I mean, I don't want to begrudge people good jobs in their chosen profession, but I mean, there's so many different titles and roles. But it's another thing I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, it's very structured. Sean Mannion's the offensive coordinator. It's not, and we went through this last year with it. We've gone through multiple years, when Kellen Moore was here and they were struggling. Oh, Nick's taking over. And when he's doing well, oh, Kellen's doing it. And it's like, and that's just offensive coordinator, head coach. Last year, you had the Leffler stuff, the weird stuff, the Leffler stuff. And it's like, look, that's coming from people who just don't understand how the NFL works. I mean, the quarterback's coach isn't getting involved with whatever they claimed he was involved with. That's just not how it works. Now, it's collaborative, but it's a flow chart. Everything goes up. So, I mean, it's not like Josh Grizzard is stepping in to talk to Jalen Hurts on a daily basis. That's, the guy who works with him and runs the quarterback room is going to be Parks Frazier. And the guy who runs the offensive meetings and is going to be in charge of the whole offense and is going to be very hands-on with the quarterback, presumably, we're told, is Sean Mannion. Gerard Johnson's going to do special projects like Jim Bob Cooter when he was here. And that's basically, if you want, and it's probably a favor, to be honest, because things went bad in Houston with CJ Stroud. And it was late in the process. And, the last thing you want as a young coach is to hold on the resume. You're not going to sit out for a year. So if you think about it over the years with Jim Bob Cooter, just with Nick, when Marcus Brady came in, people probably forget that he got fired in Indianapolis, and Nick had a history with him, and he brought him in as a consultant. Then he had an actual role the next year, and then he was gone. They've done it for years, and they'll continue to do it. And that is why Jared Johnson's here, to be honest. And if things go well, maybe he sticks around with a promotion. But of course, if things go really well, Sean Mannion's going to be out of here. So then the whole thing is opened up again. But you get my point. If it's just a 1-year stopover and he's going to get a quarterback's job or an offensive coordinator job next year, to me, it shakes out as a Jim Bob Cooter, Marcus Brady like favor.
Yeah, and Nick, by the way, Nick acknowledged that yesterday, what you just talked about, that they could lose Sean Mannion after 1 year if they have any semblance of success.
Yeah. And then they'll have the same, and you have guys on staff now immediately, because that hasn't worked before. Brian Johnson for Shane Steichen, Kevin Patullo for Kellen Moore. People will not want Josh Grizzard, Parks Frazier, Jared Johnson, but to have that ability on your own staff, that's the goal. To want to promote people just hasn't worked here. But I think that has more to do with the difficulty of following up on Super Bowl seasons.
John, I do think it's relevant and interesting for Nick to to manage it though this year. I have no problem with having a bunch of coaches. I think that's a good thing. I mean, to have a lot of guys, but I do think the management and the delegation and establishing clear roles, which Nick referenced yesterday, is going to be an important part of Nick Sirianni's job. I mean, you want people to know exactly what they're supposed to be doing and not have people feeling like their toes are getting stepped on, if they're in another part. So I do think that's actually a big role for Nick this year to try and manage that. I think Nick's done a pretty good job at it in the past, but a lot of people out there think Nick is a dumbass, John, for whatever reason. They say that all the time. So I do think Nick has to be on top of that, though. You have a lot of guys. You have a young play caller, who's never called plays, who has guys
well,
around.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing I would agree with. They have a young, unproven play caller.
Right.
Now, the roles are very defined. They have been here. Every single role has been here. Very defined. Passing game.
Sticking to that role is different than defining the said role.
Well, yeah, and that has to do with, if you want to go back to Sean Desai, which is the last time they've done this, and you could make the argument that they brought these guys in as an insurance policy, which they did with Matt Patricia and Sean Desai, and that you saw how that worked out. Now, there's a little bit of difference in that. I think Matt Patricia had a higher profile, to say the least, than Josh Grizzard and Jared Johnson. So, that's a former head coach. That's a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. Everybody knew who Matt Patricia was and what his resume was. And it just looked obvious that he was there as the safety net, and obvious turned into Occam's razor. Yes, it was true. That's why he was there. Is that why Josh Grizzard is here? I don't think so. Is that why Jared Johnson's here? I don't think so. But there will be people that think that, especially if Sean Mannion starts to struggle.
Will be interesting to see what happens there. Nick, last thing on Nick here. He's gotten very good politically over the years, John, as you've talked about often on the show. He got asked about, is Devontae Smith ready to be a wide receiver one? And he goes, AJ's still here. We got 2 wide receiver ones, 1A and 1B. I'm like, boy, Nick was ready for that one. He's gotten awfully good at being political, as you've mentioned on the show.
Yeah. And he is still here. So from his point, understand, Howie's stubborn, man, And by the way, did you see Les Snead confirmed the trade talks?
Yeah.
That's not for you. That's for the people that say we're making it up. Les Snead, the GM of the Los Angeles Rams, because he doesn't give a shit about this bullshit tippy-toeing around, confirmed the trade talks. For those who think we're making it all up. That's the only reason.
I'll give you guys the quote. We chatted with Philly. Nothing worked out. Snead said there were talks. We had discussions. Didn't work out. That happens.
Yeah. So that now I've said from the start, I did not believe the Rams were a serious contender because I don't believe Howie would trade A.J. Brown to the Los Angeles Rams at this stage of the game, because they're a very good team. They're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They are expected to be again. I do not think he would trade him to that particular franchise. But they talked. And there is your on the record confirmation that they have talked about trading A.J. Brown, which it's absurd that I have to point that out, but I feel I have to point that out.
Yeah, which happens all the time. So that, there's also a way to look at it where it's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, people call about players all the time, and talks happen, and talks.
There's that part. If you're talking about players and potential trades, but from the standpoint, it's very easy to shut down trade. Like anybody can call, yes, about anybody. Nobody's asking Howie about trading Jalen Hurts or Jordan Mailata or Zach Bond. I mean, if you're not in business, if the door isn't open, nobody's asking.
Stark different approach over there, John, in LA. Another comment that they talked about was basically how Les Snead and Sean McVay believe in transparency with their players, and he spoke about how if they believe there's a
back.
Yeah, but hey, everybody pats
that part
there,
that part the Eagles are very transparent with AJ. They're not transparent with us. Right. AJ's the one who wants to be shopped. Jimmy Sexton's the one shopping him. AJ knows.
Yeah, right.
They're transparent.
So no kudos to them on that. All right.
No. Yeah, AJ knows what's going on. They're not transparent with us, the media, and by extension the fans. And either is Les and Sean. They're transparent with their players. They're not. They were not transparent about their interest in AJ Brown, other than people found out about it. So it's no different, but, and Howie will be transparent about it once the deal is done. If the deal is done, he will be, just like Les Snead. It didn't work out. That's why he's transparent about it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But it is interesting that he didn't give a shit. But that's a little bit of a rivalry.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, good stuff there on the conversation yesterday with Nick Sirianni. Now Jeffrey Lurie will speak today. John referenced he thinks it's going to be a lot of business. So everybody in Philly, do you want a new stadium? Do you want a new stadium? Do you want to renovate the Lincoln Financial Field? What do you think they're going to end up doing with that, John? I know it's kind of boring. We don't spend much time on it. People don't like to talk about it that much. But, I do think Jeffrey's going to talk about that, and I have a feeling they're going to go the way of the new stadium, where you look at what's happening with some of these stadiums, man. It feels like architecture and design and all this stuff has drastically changed in the last, 15, 20 years. I think they're going for a big renovation or a big new stadium, perhaps.
Well, I think they want a retractable roof at the bare minimum, and they'll frame it as well, we want to get a Final Four and we want to get a Super Bowl, and they don't give a shit. They just want a new stadium, but that's how they'll frame it.
But that does help, right? Or is that
but you can't get a Super. You're not getting a Super Bowl in Philadelphia.
But it's an economic thing more for the city, right? Not as much.
Yeah, they're trying to. But you try to frame it. Obviously, the Eagles want it for their own purposes, but you try to sell it as, look what it'll do for Philadelphia. You can get a Final Four.
Yeah, the unions will get you, or whoever they'll get a bunch of jobs.
WrestleMania has become a big thing. WrestleMania was tremendously successful when it was in Philadelphia from a business perspective. They set every gate record, which they then broke. But at the time, they set every gate record. They sold out, Wells Fargo Center Friday and Monday for the TV shows. Even the developmental show drew like 18,000. It was very successful. And I can tell you, they're never coming back because it was freezing. It's April and it's like hit and miss here. And it was freezing on Saturday. They're not coming back unless there's a roof on that place. And obviously the Super Bowl's not coming. The Final Four is out of question. So those big events, that's how they'll frame it. As it's great for the city. You'll be able to draw, and they will be able, if they want to. They'll be able to get a Final Four. They'll be able to get WrestleMania back. They'll get a Super Bowl. All those things will happen. So, but I'm of the standpoint of these guys are so rich now that to get public funding for these freaking stadiums is abhorrent, especially in today's, monetary climate. Do it yourself, man. You're the ones with the value. They're allowed to sell. The NFL changed the rule So you saw Jeffrey Lurie already did it. You sell 5-10% of the team, with these $10 billion valuations, you get $1 billion. Do it yourself. And that's not just Jeffrey Lurie, that's everybody.
Yeah, they're all none of them are doing it themselves.
No. Well, and the trade-off of the land, that kind of stuff is okay. If you're, but
there is big economic impact for the cities.
Yeah, sure. But a lot of teams are going to suburbs, that's a big deal in Chicago, and they're trying to fight it. They want to go to Indiana. The Chiefs are moving to Kansas. They're moving out of Arrowhead. A lot of teams going to the suburbs. Hey, these cities, man, they're so corrupt. They don't like to compete. That's what's going on. I've said it for years with the Eagles. There's plenty of room to expand, not the NovaCare complex, the Jefferson Health Training Complex, and the city won't budge.
I mean, it's so stupid. The city's gonna be sorry when they move out to a suburb, or they move to Chester County or New Jersey, wherever the heck they would go.
I would think so.
I mean, that's what I mean. There's a lot of economic.
You look at Philadelphia is terrible when it comes to corruption, but
oh gosh, yeah.
You look at cities like Oakland. I mean, they've lost the Raiders twice. They've lost the A's. We're going to Vegas and already are out. I mean, these cities, man. Oof, they are just corruption machines.
Yeah, well, I don't know how they don't realize that they're losing massive revenue, a massive amount of people coming to the city. I mean, I would imagine, John, that there's some people out there who would say, if it wasn't for them going to their favorite sports teams games, maybe a Phillies game or a Sixers game or an Eagles game, they wouldn't go into the city all that much. Now obviously outside of the people who work in the city, but I mean, John, let me ask you. If the Eagles facility moved over to South Jersey or across the bridge, how many times a year would you drive into the city?
That I'm a little bit different because I'm older. I think cities are for younger people, to be honest.
I don't know. Is that true?
Well, I mean, for the nightlife and that kind of stuff. And I went through that phase. Everybody goes through that phase. Most people. Now when you get to us, now it's like just a headache. And I don't want to go on a tangent, but you got me. I'll go on a tangent. You know what? Because I got to go over the bridge and I go to Philly often because, I'm in practice during the season, training camp daily almost. And one of the things which I hate about progressive politics is that they're so regressive with their taxes, and they don't think that way. We'll put a millionaire's tax. You always hear about that. You know what the worst tax in Philadelphia is? That damn bridge tax. People don't even think it's a tax. That's what it is.
Right.
Who do you think paying? And I don't even know what it is because I have easy pay. I think it's $6. Yeah.
Yeah, they upped it to $6.
So you have who do you think that's hurting? Rich people or poor people? How regressive is that freaking tax? Yeah, just somebody who's got a lot of money, $6. Who gives a shit? It's on my easy pay.
$5, 5 days a week. It's $30, $120.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying for people who are struggling, that is devastating. Literally. Nobody cares.
Very good point. Yeah, good point. That is what it is. We don't want to go too deep down that road, but I do agree with you on that. We'll see what ends up happening with the new stadium in Philly, if they end up doing anything like that. And we'll hear from Jeffrey Lurie today. I'm interested to see what Jeffrey Lurie has to say about the season last year. I'm not sure how much of it he'll get asked, but we will see what happens with that. John, we are 24 days away, 23 days away now from the NFL draft, getting closer to that NFL draft. We're going to turn the page to April tomorrow, as John pointed out. Don't get duped by any April Fool's accounts. Set the post notifications for John McMullen on. And if you don't see Johnny Mac put it out, then you can confirm it's some fake news in Eagle Land. All right. So that's my recommendation to you all. Put the post notifications on for J Mac and don't get duped by any fake accounts out there who are going to try and dupe you on April Fool's Day with AJ Brown. As we get closer into this NFL draft, John, I am intrigued by what the draft plan is. And, me see it a little differently. You've been putting out that you think they've done a good job at draft proofing the roster. I think that's a good thing to draft proof, but you don't win big by draft proofing. You win big by getting great players, and the Eagles still need quite a bit of great players, or at least they've lost quite a bit of great players. And it's going to be interesting to see how they try and replace those guys, coming up here in the next month.
No, you don't win. I hope people understand. I'm not claiming you win by draft proofing. What you do is you improve your odds to make good decisions on draft day, which is the far more important part of it. That's the far more important part of it. The Eagles don't, because of how they operate. And I think, as I said yesterday, it's one of the strengths of Howie Roseman. And look, their draft history over the past 5 seasons is, if it's not the best, it's really close to being the best. And I think part of the reason why is what he's doing right now. Because he doesn't feel the need to reach for positions. Oh, I don't have this. I gotta take an edge right here. Well, they need an edge, but now they have guys who can at least hold down the fort. That basically go, I'm not going to reach for an edge if I like offensive lineman better. That's all. It just helps you make better decisions.
Right. Less desperation.
Yeah. And there's so many teams that don't do it. They get desperate and they reach and they make bad decisions. That to me is the only point. And you're not winning with Joe Tryon. But it helps you make good decisions in the draft is what it does. It doesn't guarantee anything, but anything that gives you an advantage. And I'm amazed. You see now we're in this wave of free agency. Who's signing people other than the Eagles? Every day almost.
Yeah, there's not much. You're right. Outside of the Eagles.
And again, the vast majority of these guys, I'm not going to say vast majority, but some of these guys are not even going to make the team. I'm not trying to say they're meaningful additions. I'm trying to say this is what good organizations do. They draft proof the roster. It's not unique to Philadelphia, but very few teams are smart enough to do it. And they're one of them, and it gives them a really big advantage.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening with there. All right, Johnny, a couple of good segments here. We got Mark Farzetta coming up in hour number 2. So we're going to talk to Mark Farzetta. A couple questions I have for you here as we look to the draft. Not entirely draft related, but I do want to talk about the changes that the team has had. The Eagles lost Reed Blankenship. I don't think anybody's losing sleep over losing Reed Blankenship, but you did lose kind of a key communicator. They've added in Tariq Woolen. They obviously have 2 all-pro players in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. You have Andrew Makuba, a second-round draft pick last year. You have Marcus Epps coming back. They have guys. I'm not overly stressed about the position. My question to you is, who do you think takes on the role that Reed had in terms of being the communicator, the leader, the on-field captain of the secondary, if you will? Is that a Cooper DeJean role in the slot? Is that an Andrew Makuba role at safety? Is that a Quinyon Mitchell role? How do you see that playing out after the departure of Reed Blankenship?
Yeah, I think it's probably a Michael Carter or Marcus Epps role, or to be determined role if they get somebody from outside the organization. That's one. It can't be a corner. It can't be. It's just not, it would be a little bit easier for the slot guy to do it, but think about having to communicate with the safeties from the slot, or it's the outside cornerback. There's no chance. You're on an island. You can't really communicate with guys across the field. So that is a job that has to go to the safety. Obviously, I don't think Drew's ready for it by everything, Vic said last season. A rookie, in theory, is not going to be ready for it. So Marcus Epps is ready for it. He's done it in the past. But I don't think he's at this stage of his career good enough. Michael Carter, is kind of a roll of the dice. The Eagles think he can play the position, but he hasn't played the position. So you kind of have to see it. And then, as Howie said out in Phoenix, he admitted, we're going to add people at this position. But what does that look like? Is that Kilgore, a rookie, or is that a veteran on the trade market? If it's a veteran, it'd be much easier. If it's Jalen Kilgore, well, then you have to decide who's going to be the communicator. Is it going to be Kilgore or Drew Makuba? And I don't think Vic would be comfortable with either. But, this is very low on the list of, I'd also rather have the great player. I don't want to downplay the communication aspect of it, but I'd always take the good player over the communicator. I just would prefer to have both, but so
Do they have either right now?
No, I think they've done a good job draft proofing, but no, I don't think it would be a success if Marcus Epps is starting next to Drew Makuba.
So in theory, the player that they would need to add, the ideal perfect world vision would be that they'd be the leader and the starter.
Yeah, you can't be a backup and be the.
Yeah, obviously that's probably the hurdle with Marcus Epps. Nobody knows if he's going to start. You got to be the certified starter if you're going to take on the leadership role.
I mean, you can do things behind the scenes.
John, how many guys fit that role? I mean, that could come in here and be the starter, certified, and be the leader.
Well, the leadership part of it is that's a little bit. I'm just talking about on-field communication. The leadership is much bigger part of it. Off the field, that could be Marcus Epps, in the meeting room and things like that. I'm just talking about on the field, like who's going to get people lined up correctly in the back end. And that it could be a rookie, if he's smart, if he has a high football IQ, Reed had it all. I remember last year when everybody left, and I said, I guarantee you Reed Blankenship's going to be a captain of this team. So, but now I'm just strictly talking about traffic cop on field. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a captain. Because I doubt you're going to replicate going to replicate that.
So who are the candidates you would think for that right now?
Carter, number one, and Epps in
I was more talking not those guys, because those are the fallbacks, it seems.
To be TBD. They're going to draft somebody or they're going to trade for somebody. Howie already admitted.
If they draft somebody, they're not going to fit that role. They're going to draft a player who's going to come in here and be the on-field leader.
Why not? There's smart friggin' football players.
You think a rookie's going to come in here and be the on-field leader of the secondary?
If they're like Nakobe Dean
was as about as good of a rookie, and Quinion as about good of rookies as you can get. They would not have had.
Yeah, that. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the smarts to get people line. I'm not talking about talent. I'm not talking about effectiveness. Like Cooper could do it, but he's not playing the position to do it.
Yeah, right.
Easily could have, and he easily could have done it as a rookie.
Well, my point in asking this ultimately leads to, does moving Cooper to safety make sense at this point for this team? I mean, I get your point about, hey, a rookie can be a smart player, but it doesn't feel to me like a rookie who's probably going to be worried about 100 million things in his first couple of NFL games, which is normal, is going to be out there directing traffic. No?
Hey, man, I would bet that wherever he lands, I would bet Dylan Thieneman's doing it as a rookie. I would bet the house on it. I mean, yeah, it's not as big as a deal as I think you're making it out to be honest. I mean, Nakobe Dean, if he didn't have the injuries and hit the ground running, could have run the whole defense as a rookie easily. I mean, that is a smart freaking dude. Easily. But again, it has to be a high IQ player. Can't it just be like I don't think Vic, by the way he talked about Drew last year, I don't think Vic thinks of that of him. So it's got to be the other guy. But I mean, if you're an instinctual player, like this, the smartest football player I've probably ever seen in my time covering the NFL is Luke Kuechly. Now, I can go back to his rookie season, but I guarantee he was running that defense. Now, that to me is different than, again, captaincy and leadership off the field. Then that's something you have to earn in the locker room with your peers. But as far as doing things on the field and just communicating, yeah, rookies can do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe they will. I just don't know if that's the best method for.
Well, you got it. I don't think they're drafting Dylan. I mean, I'm not saying there's a lot of those players.
Yeah, right.
But I'm saying there's a handful, and there's a lot of hurdles. Like Nakobe could do it, but he didn't get on the field because he, at that stage of his career, wasn't ready to be on the field. But he could do it mentally. So there's a lot of hurdles to it. But I don't think it's, like Marcus can do it, and I don't think he can do the physical aspect of it at this stage, at least over 17 games. Like, it's easier to do the mental aspect if you're a smart player than the physical aspect. Marcus is a smart dude.
Makes sense. I just think I think people have discounted, John, the loss of Reed a little bit. It's not that I think Reed is irreplaceable. I don't, and I'm not. I haven't even really criticized the Eagles for letting him go. I'm fine with it. But I do think sometimes people go too far in discounting it. Reed played a big role on this team.
Oh, I agree. He's not given the respect he should, and that's because he was undrafted. It's a weird thing, man. Never leaves you. Just like the first round pick. Like, think about Joe Tryon. We lost Zander. Where did Zander go?
My bad.
Think about Joe Tryon. And the Eagles just signed him. He's a first round pick. He will forever be a first round pick. Now, what people don't tell you is he was 32nd overall, I believe. I have to double check, but I think he was 32nd overall. Very few people graded him as a first round pick. And that's a team taking a shot on somebody they think they had upside at the end of the first round because they had some, gravitas from winning the Super Bowl. But he'll forever be a first round pick. Was he really a first round pick? Not really. Literally he was. But from the perspective of most people around the league, it would have been a no. In the secondary, after, Reed Blankenship was undrafted, he signed for $5,000. That was the signing bonus. That will always be on his resume. Now, after being a Super Bowl winning safety, after playing in 2 Super Bowls, after being a starter, after being a team captain, do you think somebody might have missed the boat on Reed Blankenship? Of course. Not the Eagles, but they might have missed the boat on re-signing him for 8 point whatever it was, 8.75, whatever he got, 8.25, I think. Yeah. And if he were a second round pick in front of instead of and I think the Eagles are a smart organization, but if he were a second round pick instead of undrafted, they would have re-signed him. I guarantee you. I guarantee it. It is a tough hurdle to overcome.
We'll see. All right, John, next topic I want to get into here. Good answer there. We'll see what they end up doing at safety. Next topic here I want to get into before we get Mark Farzetta coming on at 9:20. Looking forward to talking to Farzy, seeing what he thinks of this offseason so far, is the offensive line. And you've talked about draft proofing a lot. And do you feel, John, that they've draft proofed enough and added enough right now to the depth on the offensive line? Obviously, I'm not going to beat the dead horse here that we've talked about all summer, that the offensive line wasn't good enough last year. Some of their starting players didn't play well enough. There's a lot of concerns about the health of that offensive line. Outside of Fred Johnson, who are you looking at as their depth right now? And what's the plan for, I don't want to call it stability, but some good contingency plans on that offensive line if you are having, Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens struggling with their health again this year? And even Lane Johnson, who's getting, almost 36 years old now, I believe.
Well, a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if today or tomorrow is when they bring in the interior offensive lineman. They don't have a veteran backup because they lost Brett Toth. Now they have bodies. They have Drew Kendall. They have Willie Lampkin. They have Jake Majors. They have a ton of bodies, but they're young players who barely played or were unproven. They got Fred Johnson back, and I think people are happy and say, Fred did a pretty good job. Well, yes, but he's draft proofing. That does not prevent them from drafting a tackle. And if they draft a tackle, Fred's going to be SOL. It's just the nature of this business, unfortunately. So they have plenty, even a tackle. They have Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams, Holland Pierce. They have plenty of backups, plenty of young potential developmental players, and that's another thing. It's not Jeff Stoutland anymore. It's Chris Cooper. So who knows if any of these guys are going to develop. But they have a boatload of bodies. And I do know the organization, at least last year, really liked Drew Kendall, really liked Cam Williams after week 18. And think if he would have went back to Texas, probably would have been at worst a day 2 pick, maybe even a first round pick. So they like those 2 players. Everybody else, I think Willie Lampkin's going to get a lot of hype just because of his size and his athleticism. But it's unproven, whereas Fred Johnson on the outside is proven, at least as a backup. So it wouldn't surprise me if they brought in a veteran interior player, because that's the one thing they don't have right now.
Yeah, I think they need it. It's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing on the offensive line. John, what's your personal thought right now on Chris Cooper? Obviously, we don't know, but there's a lot of people who talk about it. I'm curious to hear what you think of the loss. I mean, I think you always give good context on the meaning and the impact of coaches versus players, and obviously how you see that, I think, is not the most conventional way, which doesn't mean it's wrong. I think it's probably a good thing, considering, the way that people think about things in life. But how do you see Chris Cooper? Do you see it as a big problem, or are you in wait and see mode, or not that consequential? Where's kind of the John McMullen thought process on Chris Cooper?
Well, it's a tough spot for him because, Stoutland's a legend in this town. And it's always difficult to replace a legend because people are going to compare you to him. And he comes in at a time where players are declining. So, Jeff Stoutland's resume is dotted with Pro Bowls and all pros. He had Jason Kelsey in his prime. He had Lane Johnson in his prime. He had Jason Peters in his prime. These are Hall of Fame level players.
Yeah.
To expect Chris Cooper to turn Cameron Williams into Lane Johnson is probably unrealistic. To expect him to turn Blake Miller into Lane Johnson is probably unrealistic. Or insert first round draft pick,
Right.
wherever you like. It's probably unrealistic.
Yeah, and I think the truth there is did Jeff Stoutland turn Lane Johnson into Lane Johnson? I don't know. I mean, Lane Johnson might have become Lane Johnson anywhere.
I give more credit to the player. Now, again, it's similar to Vic. I think, Stout probably got him a little bit better than where he would have gotten under somebody else. Where he would have gotten under somebody else is maybe one less All-Pro or two less Hall of Fame votes. I mean, the guy's so gifted. Yeah, I think he was going to be Lane Johnson. And, Jason Kelsey, Jason Peters, as I said, even if you want to go down to Brandon Brooks and Guy Stout himself, you heard some of the names if you listen to him on Nick Foles. He always brings up Brooks. He always brings up Isaac Seumalo. Loves Isaac. You heard some of the names if you listen to him on Nick Foles' podcast, but he had a lot of fucking talent. I think, and then there were, I think the best Jeff Stoutland developmental stories, I think of it differently than everybody else. I think it's Brett Johnson. I think it's Brett Toth. That's who I think it is. These are guys who, and Fred told the story, he was doing nothing. He was angry to be here. He was like, why are you acting like I'm a starter? He just wanted to pick up his paycheck and hold bags on the scout team. And he's out there playing at a competitive level. Brett Toth, everybody's like, Brett Toth stinks. Why is he keeping Brett
too,
Toth?
right? Becton's another good one.
Yeah, Becton's a good one. But he had talent. I mean,
right.
Becton was,
first round pick.
Yeah. The Brett Toth was like, people are like, why is he can't snap? He can't do this. He can't do that. He was fucking good last year. It took a long time, but he developed him. Those are the ones that I'm a little bit different. If you have Hall of Fame talent, you have Hall of Fame talent. Now you still got to get there. And then you have Lesser Isaac's a big success story. There's a lot of players, but when you look at Cooper in Minnesota, there's two players specifically: Garrett Bradbury, who was a first round pick, and Ed Ingram, who was a second round pick, and they were terrible. Which is, it happens. Andre Dillard happened here. He was a first round pick. But the problem is they went to other places and played well. That's a concern for me. And there's other, like Kristen Darrisaw was so good. That's a good, he's just good. He developed under Chris Cooper before he got hurt. Brian O'Neill is just good. And he's been there for years before Chris Cooper. So I don't know if you give him credit for that. And Donovan Jackson was a first round pick last year, and he's pretty damn good because he's gifted. So it's a little bit of give and take. So it's wait and see, certainly. But my concern is people are not going to give him a lot of rope because of what they think of Stoutland. And the second part is he's not getting the Stout and Landon Dickerson. Hopefully, he's getting the Stout and Cam Jurgens, and hopefully Cam can get healthy. I have more confidence in Cam than Landon getting healthy. But, I'm not a doctor. It's just the way I perceive it. And obviously he's getting Lane Johnson at the end of his career. It's a tough, and these guys have all been coached one way, and now he's got to coach them a different way. Got to teach old dogs new tricks.
Yeah.
A tough spot for him. I'll say that.
And what would success look like for Chris? It almost feels like I don't want to say it's impossible, but yeah, I mean, there's a reason people say never follow the legend or whatever the phrase is. What does success look like for Chris Cooper this year, you think?
Well, top 5 offensive line.
Oof, it's gonna be tough for him.
I don't know if it is, because if those guys are healthy, they're going to have a top 5 offensive line.
Yeah, but that's a big if. I mean, you understand Lane Johnson's 36, Cam Jurgens coming off back surgery. Landon Dickerson, obviously we've beaten that, dead horse. We know how badly injured Landon Dickerson is. Jordan Mailata is almost 30 years old now. He's getting older, So that's a tough ask, but doesn't mean it can't be done.
No, and I think it has to do strictly with health. I think if they're healthy, Chris Cooper, Jeff Stoutland, insert name, Greg Austin, the assistant offensive line coach. If they're healthy, they're going to be a top 5 offensive line because they're good. And I think the coaches will adjust ultimately. And, I thought what Howie said was interesting, well, we're going to look for more athleticism and a click more athleticism, whatever he said. But I'm never going to look at guys who can displace defenders as a bad trait. Guys can blow people off the ball. They're not going to turn their heads and say, hey, Landon, go reach block. If he's healthy, they're going to let him blow people off the ball. I think, ultimately. Might take them a while, but I think they'll get there.
What do you think the chances are the Eagles use their first-round pick on an offensive lineman?
Very good chance. If you're playing the odds, that's who they're going to pick. There's a bunch of them, bunch of good ones. Should be 1 or 2 they like at 23 that even if they don't have to move up. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing the odds, offensive line should be the heavy favorite.
And you think it's the right move to draft the Lane Johnson replacement now? Some people have said that's a luxury pick. If you're not gonna have draft a guy in the first round, that would be penciled in as a starter on day one. And I don't know that he would. Now you've talked about moving him to right guard to start, but I don't even think that's a guarantee. Because I thought Steen was okay last year. So do you think that's the right move, or do you view that as somewhat of a luxury pick, but maybe a necessary luxury pick?
Yeah, I don't think it's a luxury if you've been trying to do it for years and haven't. You see it with Dallas Goedert. I mean, everybody sees the necessity, but the last thing you want to do is, be in a position where Lane walks away and you're at next year's draft and you have to go get his replacement. And then you're in that desperation scenario. And it, maybe if it happened with Dallas Goedert this year, maybe more people would change their way of thinking about the term luxury, because I think, and I say it all the time, and I've said it a lot this week, everybody's caught up in the immediacy of it. It's a luxury right now. Again, Howie looks at this stuff in 3-year windows.
Well, remember, I mean, it wasn't a big deal. Well, it was a big deal, but the Eagles weren't in a bad position when Fletcher Cox retired because they addressed it. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis.
Well,
But that's how I view Lane Johnson, to your point about it being it feels like a luxury right now, but it won't feel like a luxury when Lane Johnson hangs up the cleats and you got a guy.
For years they said, why are you drafting Cam Jurgens? And that was a second round pick.
Right.
He didn't play at all as a rookie. And then the second year he was playing guard. He didn't get to center until his third season.
Right.
And he played well before he got hurt. And nobody was saying it was a luxury then. So it is. And again, third season, 3 years. It's not just about the moment. Look, if the moment works out, it's great. You draft Quinyon Mitchell, and life is funny. They didn't want to draft Quinyon Mitchell, but they did, and it worked out. So
sometimes it's better to be lucky and good, and what they say, Johnny Mac. All right, good stuff. We got Mark Farzetta set to join us right here on Birds 365. I want to thank everybody for joining us here this morning. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Had a good week, and we get ready to step into April, everybody. Draft month is coming up. Let's talk to Mark Farzetta. He joins us right now here on Birds 365. Mark Farzetta, welcome to the show, my friend. We appreciate you joining in. How you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
Oh, everything's just great on the Philadelphia sports scene. It's just fantastic. This is going to probably be, hopefully Andrew Painter does better today, but talking to you, Zander, and talking to you, Johnny Mac.
Good seeing you, buddy. I haven't seen you.
Good to see you too, my friend. Yeah. I know it's been a minute, man. Good to see you. Yeah, no, looking forward to breaking down the birds with you fine people.
All right, well, we'll start. A.J. Brown is a member of the Eagles. Mark, I don't know if you heard that, Mark, but
did I?
He is a member of the Eagles.
Yeah, I got a copy of the script before Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman read it, so it was spoiled. It was the way Nick Sirianni read that was like a bad actor. AJ Brown is on our team. He's on our team. Oh, not convinced, but I will go ahead, John and Zander, and read into what everybody else has been reading into, just taking the littlest blip on the radar about A.J. Brown and then just running with it and beating it to death. And here's what I got for you. All right. You're both seated, right? You're both sitting down? Okay.
Yeah, we're seated.
Did you guys happen to notice the NFL owners meetings, the annual coaches picture? Did you guys happen to notice anything about that?
I saw.
I Nick was jacked. I noticed that.
I thought Nick mogged the picture, Farzy. He was the alpha dog on the outside with his arms crossed. Mm-hmm. Is it the shorts? Are you going the shorts route?
Oh, I'm going shorts all the live long day, my friend. Okay. Now listen. Nick Sirianni and Sean Payton were the only coaches in shorts. So that clearly means there's a deal in place for A.J. Brown to go to the Broncos.
Oh, okay.
First and the third round pick. You're welcome. Let's run with it.
Wow.
There you go. Detective work, friends.
I'd buy it. I would like it. I think it's a good theory as anybody's. If they already got Jalen Waddle, though. I don't think they can do. That's the only thing that
super team, dream
but
team.
I think Nick is bullying all these dudes. I'm like, whoa. Where did he get so big? I don't know if it was the angle or what, but
he's got to fight A.J. Brown. That's the way they're going to decide whether or not they actually trade him. Yeah. They're going to have a steel cage match.
Maybe the airing of the grievances. You get the pole out and you wrestle. And you see.
Dorothy, how you feeling about this Eagles team? We're going into April. We got the draft coming up this month. Obviously, a season last year where, they didn't live up to expectations. Kind of a disappointing season, I think, for the team, for the fans, for everybody. Now they've had some big changes coming up here. Where's your head on this team right now? Where are they? Is the window closing, Farzy? Is it still open? Is it glim? Is it doom and gloom? Where are you, Farzy, on this football team right now?
I'm as far as Sean Mannion's offense will be willing to take them. That's where I am. I mean, it's still the biggest question mark. I mean, I know a lot of people are still debating like Jalen Hurts. Like Jalen's great. I don't have an issue with Jalen Hurts. They moved on from Kevin Patullo again after 1 year. And they said, okay, we do this thing with coaches with coordinators where if they don't have experience, we don't do well. So let's go and get someone with less experience, almost none, actually, next to no experience, and run it. So I'm skeptical about Sean Mannion, and I'm also skeptical about everyone talking about how brilliant this guy is, yet nobody else was knocking down his door to be their offensive coordinator. So that always takes me back. I don't care how many coaches the Eagles hire like this that end up having success, whether it's Andy Reid, whether it's Doug Peterson, whether it's Nick Sirianni. I have issues when the guy doesn't have any experience, and that's been the problem, especially when you're talking about the offensive coordinator of the Eagles, where you get the Eagles a coordinator that at least doesn't draw his play up in crayon, and they seem to have a lot of success. So Sean Mannion, I love hearing from Nick Sirianni. There's a hard worker and all that stuff, but we're not going to know what he has to offer until we actually see it. The one little nugget that we got from Nick Sirianni yesterday when he was addressing the reporters was he's a hard worker and play action passing. When you look at the Eagles and how they played against Minnesota, right. When they play against the Minnesota Vikings last year, you saw maybe the way this offense is going to look more, how they're going to look or use a lot of that play action more, the way they used it in Minnesota. And that win, and after that win, Jalen came out, and whether you want to believe him or not, he said, I've been trying to get more play action called here. I want to do more play action and all that. So maybe Sean Mannion, under center, play action passes, setting up the pass with the run, bootlegs, rollouts, all that stuff. Maybe you're going to see a little bit more of that from Jalen Hurts in this quote-unquote Sean Mannion offense. I'm
more interested in what color crayon do you think he used? The turquoise blue was always my favorite.
Maybe, but I'll tell you this much: it was not the 64 pack with the sharpener in the back. You know what I'm saying? It was probably just that standard garden variety. Awful.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. Only the rich kids got the sharpener.
That's true. I never had that. Never had the sharpener, man.
A crown sharpener, guys. I can't say I ever used a crown sharpener.
A crayon sharpener. Yeah, you're too young. Yeah.
No, they had them. I didn't use them though. I barely used a sharpener for the pencil, Johnny Mac. I was a minute. Yeah.
Right in the box, you had a sharpener. You had a crayon sharpener. That you were living large if you had the crayon sharpener.
Kids with the sharpener and the power wheels. They had life. They had it made.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously, they wanted Mike McDaniel. They wanted Brian Daboll. So it's always the spin from there, Mark. And sometimes it works out. They didn't want Doug Peterson. They didn't want Nick Sirianni, and it worked out. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But I do think I'm amazed how quickly that recedes to the background. And he becomes 33-year-old, 2 years off the field, wonderkind. He's gonna change everything. I saw a bunch of descending players last year, Mark Farzetta, a bunch of guys, and they're not that old, but we know how quickly things change and how fluid things get in the NFL. And you talk about the injury issues on the offensive line. AJ didn't look the same. I think of all of the players, I've said this pretty consistently, of the entire offense, the only player that maintained or got better last season was Devontae Smith. How do you, I get it. Didn't work out with Kevin Patullo. Blame him all you want. But how do you get over the hurdle of a bunch of guys having down seasons all coming back? Or generally it doesn't work that way in the NFL.
Yeah. First off, when it comes to the experience factor and all that stuff with Mannion, all that goes out the window, and I hope it does. I mean, look at a guy like Kellen Moore. I mean, he hadn't done anything, then all of a sudden he's calling plays for Mike McCarthy for the Cowboys, and then he made a name for himself, obviously. Yeah. So if you're good, nobody cares about your experience. I mean, people like to look at experience because it gives you the warm and fuzzies. It lets you know what you're going to bring to the table, sometimes good, sometimes bad. There's experience, like Billy Davis had experience. That defense wasn't any good. Now you look at a guy like Sean Mannion, zero experience, but if he's good, nobody's going to care that he didn't do it anywhere else. But as far as like a guy like Devontae Smith might be the most focused athlete in all of Philadelphia. Like, of all the noise that could go on around him, he just wants to take advantage of every opportunity that is presented to him. And although nobody wants to see him block ever, when he's asked to do it, he at least gives full effort in doing it. Like, everything you could ask of him, aside from the obvious, great at going up and catching the football, great in making sure he can get yards after the catch if that opportunity is presented to him. Everything he can do, he checks every box. I'm curious. I will say this. If things do move in the direction a lot of people expect with A.J. Brown, you're looking at Devontae Smith being that number one guy. And if there's anybody that Nick Sirianni singled out yesterday, it was Devontae Smith. And it was funny, after he answered the question about A.J. Brown, he's a member of our team, he's on our team, blah, blah, blah. Right away, nobody cared. I mean, they got the stock answer they thought they were going to get. And then right away, the next question, I think it was from Tim McManus, he asked the question, so how do you proceed, Nick, in planning for the season when you don't know if you're going to have A.J. Brown? And it was just like they completely ignored the garden variety answer. And he said, well, you got to make sure you look at guys like Devontae Smith that, could step up if need be. And I think everyone looks at Devontae Smith and looks at his work ethic and looks at his talent and says, this guy has even more to offer the National Football League than what we have seen from him already. As far as declining players, I mean, my two biggest blames of last year's demise, one was Kevin Patullo, and then 1A would be how terrible the offensive line was. And I don't think the offensive line is all of a sudden bad at football or anything. I just think they were extremely banged up. And I find it very curious, to say the least, that you have two guys go to Columbia to get medical attention. Okay. You talk about these guys not being old. Landon Dickerson already talking about retirement, or that report being out there, him trying to get a flourishing TikTok following with his DIYs with his lovely misses. Good for him.
Yeah.
But that to me does have one foot out the door type of aura around it, unfortunately. And I normally would have confidence in, okay, yeah, bounce back here with the offensive line because Jeff Stoutland just sprinkles a little offensive line pixie dust on these guys and they're good to go. But now you have another unknown quantity. There's bigger questions, certainly, as you mentioned, outside of Kevin Patullo, but I think going in another direction is something they needed to do. And the only thing that'll really help put them over the top, even if Sean Mannion isn't even as good as Kevin Patullo, scary thought for a lot of people, if the offensive line dominates, that means Saquon Barkley can dominate and everything else falls in place after that.
Well, Farzy, then who bears the burden to this year on the offense? Is it Jalen has to be responsible for getting the offense better? Is it, you said Patullo is problem one. Does that mean that Sean Mannion and the staff are responsible? Is it Nick Sirianni? Who do you think has the biggest burden when it comes to trying to get this offensive line or this offense as a whole back on track?
Well, I think if it's another downward trending year, like miss the playoffs and it's ugly, I mean, Sirianni's donezo. I don't think the Eagles go, all right, let's give him another offensive coordinator. I don't think that's how it works at all. So if you're talking about who has the most responsibility, it comes on Nick Sirianni. The guy where you have the biggest ask to come in and save it is Sean Mannion. I mean, this is the guy, this is the one position in flux for the Eagles that if this isn't good, the team's not a Super Bowl contender. Jalen has been to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different coordinators and won one. Not the problem. The offensive line, they come back healthy and they look good. They're obviously not going to be the problem. We've seen them have bounce back years in the past. But the one guy that the Eagles are calling upon to say, be the difference, is the coordinator. I'm done with is Jalen Hurts the guy? That question. He's the guy. And I hope he's the guy for the next 10, 15 years in Philadelphia. The guy that has to be the guy has to be great at his job, or at least decent at his job, actually, is Sean Mannion. That's the change the Eagles made. And you can't say Mike McDaniels is the guy, Brian Daboll's is the guy, or Brian Daboll's the guy, and then say, oh, well, we didn't get them, so now what? And then go to the least experience of the bunch and not have that work. That is a tremendous dice roll for the Eagles to go to a guy that doesn't have that experience, that has, played for Sean McVay, played under guys like, Clint Kubiak and these guys to see what, to glom any kind of offense from them. Kevin O'Connell, bring in guys like that and all of a sudden use that type of scheme, that Shanahan McVay scheme, install it, and then have it not work. So he's the guy that's being looked at right now as the guy that has to be, if you want to call it that, the savior of the Philadelphia Eagles in the upcoming season.
2 things with the savior aspect of it. One, that's not fair for anybody. It's certainly not fair for Sean Mannion. But they interviewed 17 guys, and there were 7 finalists, and they hired 3. Does that come? Do you look at that as an insurance policy? And then the second part is, because I'm with you with Jalen Hurts, and this is my biggest spot. Like, why do people want to change Jalen Hurts? We've already seen the height of Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Like that Nick tells a lot of stories, and all our eyes roll when he brings up Larry Karras. But his best story ever, Mark Farzetta, was he told the story when he interviewed to be the offensive coordinator there. And Larry Karras kind of baited him and said, all right, what kind of offense do you want to run? And he started giving the answer, what he thought, like everybody in a job interview. We try to put our best foot forward. And Larry Karras slammed the table out. That's where Nick gets it and says, you don't even know who your players are. In other words, build your damn offense around your players. Why are people trying to change a unique, successful quarterback? So that was a long-winded, I apologize. But insurance policy, why? Why are we trying to change Jalen Hurts?
Mm-hmm. So I don't agree with anyone that wants to change. Yeah, the things Jalen wants to get better at. Yeah, and he's kind of gotten better at those things as his career is going on. I mean, it still amazes me that people will still put out on social media with their name on it, Jalen can't throw a deep ball. And it's like, what are we missing? And Johnny Mac, I think it was even your question to Jalen maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
When you asked him about, hey, that deep ball, you throw the deep ball rather well. Where's that bit? Whatever. And he was like, hold on, could you repeat that? Because I'm not used to hearing that. And I just thought that was a great moment for him. It was a great moment. But as far as the insurance policy with these other coaches, if anything was honest from Nick Sirianni yesterday, that might have been a little bit insightful. If there was ever a matchup of either of those two things and anything Nick Sirianni had to say in his half hour yesterday, it was the insurance policy factor. Grizzard, Gerard Johnson, these guys being here because they have done the job of being an offensive coordinator, or at least called plays. Like even Parks Frazier called plays for the depleted Colts coaching staff under Jeff Saturday, Yeah. So if Sean Mannion can't call plays, or if Sean Mannion's great at calling plays, and the vicious cycle that you're in with your offensive coordinator continues, where he's either fired or gets a head coaching job, then you have somebody else to step in and hopefully not leave with Sean Mannion, but stay here in Philadelphia and take off right from where they left off, pick up from where they left off before they left for their next job where they were fired. So Nick even admitted to the idea of it being an insurance policy. And I thought he was going down dark territory there for a second when he was answering the question, because he didn't say insurance policy, but he did say we have guys in the position that could take over if. And I was like at the edge of my seat, like, if what? If it doesn't work out, if another guy gets hired, what? And he was like, if a guy, leaves, which has been a problem when we have success as an offense. And I go, all right, that's the optimistic way to look at it. And certainly if you're Nick Sirianni, that's the way you want to look at it. So I don't even think it's a question anymore. Absolutely. You talked to these guys, you interviewed these guys, you liked them enough to bring them in. You were curious enough. You liked what you saw even in second interviews to say you still want them on their staff if they're not going to be the guy calling the play or running the offense during games.
Well, guys, let me push back on just to play the devil's advocate side of this. Hasn't it already changed? I mean, forget the future. 22 guys, they were top 10 in every category. They were a top 5 offense overall. They were top 10 in passing. They were top 6 in rushing, I believe. They were top 5 in scoring. We've never seen that again. I mean, the best year of Jalen Hurts was 2020. I think we can all agree it was
2022, second in the league in MVP voting.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was right there. That was a remarkable quarterback performance. I don't know that we've ever replicated that performance or even come close to that, So hasn't it already, in a way, changed where you had the last couple of years? Now they've added Saquon Barkley. They've had new coordinators. A lot of variables have changed. But to me, it already feels like they've changed Jalen Hurts. Whether it's him or the team, I don't know. But it feels like it's already
definitely Saquon, I would say. It's definitely when you bring in Saquon, they morph to this extremely run-heavy, risk-averse team, and that leads me back to the Jalen. Like, here's how I describe it, Mike. Mark. Yeah, I'm getting old.
All good.
Couple of them today, Johnny Mac. Come on, man.
I know. I mean, there's some Jody love for you. But It's the fact of how I describe it. The 49ers are not going to ask Brock Purdy to beat Jalen Hurts. It'd be stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we asking Jalen Hurts to beat Brock Purdy? And Nick's talking about play action, as you brought up, drop back, but it's not his game. It's not his game. It worked against Minnesota. Just Brian Flores wouldn't come out of his stupid defensive plan. Other people will. I don't understand it. That's what I want to get to the bottom of. Right. Why? This guy's had tremendous success. Embrace the uniqueness. To me, the most important part of this season, get Jalen Hurts back on board when it comes to the +1 in the running game. Then everything opens up.
Yeah, I agree. As far as the Saquon stuff goes, one of the things I really credit Jalen Hurts for is after they were 2-2 and they had the famous bye week and all the meetings 2 years ago, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl. I don't know too many quarterbacks that would say, okay, let's acknowledge that we have a historic thing that could happen here. Like, greatest weapon in the history of the NFL. Like, it could rival any weapon that's ever been used in the NFL. Saquon Barkley behind that Jeff Stoutland offensive line, just stay out of the way for the most part. And if called upon, make the throws. If you need to come up with a clutch third down, like a 3rd and 7 against the Ravens, make that throw. If you got to come up, I don't know, in the Super Bowl with an MVP performance to come up with it like Jalen Hurts did. But Jalen looked at it and said, and I think this was also part of the coaching, all I got to do is not turn the football over and we're going to win this football game. Our defense is great. Our run game is historically incredible. All I got to do is not turn the football over and we're going to the Super Bowl at least. The Chiefs end up holding Saquon to 2.3 yards per carry. Jalen balls out and the rest is history. We're partying on Broad Street. But I think the biggest difference was Jalen struggled with turnovers. The defense imploded at the end of 2023. Yep. They move on from Brian Johnson all of a sudden. And at the end of the year, they hit the reset button, bring in Saquon, and they ride that to the Super Bowl and a victory. Jalen's fear, for lack of a better term, of turnovers, I think crept back into his head this past year. The run game, all of a sudden not taking off the way it did a year ago. The offensive line not giving Jalen time to throw, unfortunately. And I know people will look at the stat of he had, I think, 3rd most time to throw compared to any other quarterback in the league. Well, that doesn't mean that he was dropping back, standing there for 3.5 seconds, surveying the field. That means he was also moved off his spot and buying 3 more seconds because he scrambled to buy time behind the line of scrimmage. And the offensive line allowing Saquon to get hit behind the line of scrimmage as often as he did at an alarming rate compared to the year before. I think that changed Jalen a lot. And that also was a big hit to the Eagles offense comparing to the year prior.
So do you think with the offensive line kind of where it is right now, maybe the most uncertainty we've had on the offensive line far as in a long time in Philly? I mean, it always feels like we've had a great offensive line with a great coach. Do you think this year is going to require back to that 22-esque version of Jalen Hurts where you might not be able to rely on Saquon as much. You might not be able to rely on the offensive line as much. You know, it doesn't mean go and turn the ball over all over the place, but maybe we need Jalen to be that number 1 playmaker again on this team. Is that fair to say? Is that kind of how you see it?
I think he needs to be the MVP of the team. I don't know if he needs to be the second, the runner-up to Patrick Mahomes or whatever, in 2022. I don't think he needs to be in contention for that, but he certainly needs to be the best player on the Eagles team. And I think maybe last year he looks at that and he goes, okay, we had our year where we just say, all right, push this button, activate Saquon, don't turn the football over. Defense holds the opponent to, 17 points. We win the game. I think a lot of it has to be more on Jalen's shoulders, and I think Jalen has to be up for that responsibility. Jalen, at certain points last year, when you think about struggles of the offensive line, I go to 2011, Michael Vick's the quarterback of the Eagles. He just had that great, MVP run, that caliber run in 2010 where they lost to the Packers in the playoffs. The following year, if you remember, that offensive line was in flux. I think Todd Herman's going into that year had to check in and was it still Juan Castillo? I think it was still Juan Castillo. He had to check in and be like, hey, where am I today? Am I guard? Am I tackle? Am I right guard? Like, it was constantly changing that offensive line. And I remember Michael Vick just flat out looking shell-shocked that season. I don't think Jalen looked shell-shocked at any point last year, but he definitely defaulted to escaping the pocket more than you would have liked him to. The game in Buffalo in the second half, I know a lot of people were blaming the offensive line and blaming Kevin Patullo. There were things Jalen was doing in that game that, yeah, you might err on the side of saying that it was shell-shocked, but escaping the pocket when you didn't need to, rolling into pressure to try to escape pressure that wasn't there in the middle of the field, he struggled in that second half. I mean, he wasn't the main problem, but he was a problem. So I think a lot of that defaulted to trying to get a little bit more towards hero ball from Jalen when the plays just weren't there to be made, unfortunately. So I look at it, and I think if the offensive line stands strong and Jalen trusts them, knows he has a big run from Saquon maybe at different parts in the season, but not relying on it, I think that's where you'll see the best Jalen emerge, similar to what you saw in 2022.
Well, Mark, you say Jalen's got to be the best player on this team, which is always good if your quarterback is playing at an MVP level. But you do think back to the Super Bowl winning season, and it was Saquon. So where are you with Saquon? Is it more likely you're not going to get to 2,005 yards, 2,500 and whatever it was with the postseason, but is it more likely he's closer to that Saquon Barkley, or are we looking at a descending player's probably not going to be here in 2027?
I think you're looking at a Saquon Barkley that can still get you 1,300 yards behind a good offensive line, behind an offensive line that's on the same page, behind a healthy offensive line. But for me, with Saquon in this new offense, it's also going to come down to what Saquon could do in the total yards game, how many touches he could get, not just carries. I know we've screamed about it for years in Philadelphia, and I know we've been spoiled with the play of Brian Westbrook, with the play of LaShawn McCoy and the screen game and all that. Darren Sproles, how great that was. Wheel routes galore, how great that was. I want to see that incorporated in this offense as well. And if the offensive line is just banged up and great to know Lane Johnson's going to be on your roster, week one, know that he's going to be here. I don't know how many games he's going to play in. That's going to be a question. Landon Dickerson or Cam Jurgens, how their knee or their back are going to hold up throughout the season. But if that's a struggle, you still got to find a way to put the ball in Saquon Barkley's hands. Obviously, you want that to start in the run game, but maybe you make Jalen look a little bit better by having easy dump-off passes. God forbid you use the term layup passes to Saquon Barkley in order to get that offense going. All in all, I think we're going to look back on the 2026 season with Saquon Barkley, and I think our reaction to his performance is going to be, damn, he's still a great running back. The unfortunate thing is with all running backs, the shelf life is always a question. Not everybody is a Curtis Martin or a Derrick Henry, you know what I mean? So I think we're still going to look back and say he's still got it, but the question is going to be how much longer will he have it?
Forrest, they got to run here. Last question for me. 23 days and 10 hours out from the NFL draft. What are you thinking for the Birds in this draft?
I don't think anyone's going to like it. I know nobody wants to see an offensive lineman take
Blake Miller. I do. Farzy, bring him in. Bring the offensive lineman in.
All right. We're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
Here's where I think the Eagles go. They either go offensive line or they go edge. That's where I think they go. Everyone and their mother wants Kenyon Sadiq. Ain't happening. I know that would be the sexy pick. That would take a Quenyon Mitchell-esque fall in the draft for the Eagles to even get a strong breeze of a whiff of Sadiq in that role.
Yeah. You know what I hope is going to happen, Mark? They draft Omar Cooper Jr. and Howie says, A.J. Brown is a member of the Eagles at the press conference.
And then they trade him for a first and a third from the Pats?
Yeah, after
That's
June
rich.
1st. Yeah.
You think they're getting a first and a third for us?
Yeah.
I think it's very possible. I mean, Howie, here's the thing I love about Howie.
Howie will take future picks. That's the thing. He'll take future picks.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's going to be here.
Yeah. Here's what I love about it. In the Philadelphia sports scene, we've seen the right way. In the last 6 months, we've seen the right way to go about the offseason and the wrong way to go about the offseason. Dave Dombrowski talking about Nick Castellanos like a guy under contract. Yeah, we'll see what happens. That's not how you handle it. Howie Roseman acting like he's about to vacation with A.J. Brown and his family is the exact way to handle it. To act like that we love this guy, The locker room loves this guy. The public persona does not match how the locker room feels about him, how the front office feels about him. That's exactly how you play it. And what really matters is with other GMs and other people around the league, we don't have to do anything. Like I don't know where you're at in this, but my take on the situation is AJ would like to be traded.
Oh yeah,
but I don't think he's demanding the trade. I think if he's demanding the trade, I don't think AJ is at all quiet about it. I think here's the biggest thing. If on June 1st at like 12:01 in the morning, AJ tweets a picture, posts a picture of a packed suitcase, then it's all over. All right. But other than that, I think AJ's minding his P's and Q's up until that moment. He'd like to be traded. I don't think he's putting a sledgehammer on the desk right now saying trade me.
No, and be careful tomorrow with the fake accounts because you're going to have the AJ Brown trade reported by Adam Schifter.
Yeah.
Adam Schifter is going to report.
Adam Schifter or whatever it might be. All right, Farzy, we thank you for joining us. Make sure you guys go and follow Mark on X at Mark Farzetta. Listen to the Farzy Show, one of the best shows in the morning. Farz, we appreciate you doing it today, my friend. It's always good catching up with you. We hope to talk to you again soon. All right, man.
Back at you, fine fellas. Take it easy.
Thanks, brother.
From Mark Farzetta joining us right here on Birds 365. Great to talk to Mark Farzetta. Appreciate him checking in today. Always good to hear from Farzy across the program. Johnny Mac, good conversation with Mark Farzetta. Interesting topic on Jalen Hurts there. It feels like sometimes all the other shit that goes on, we don't talk enough about Jalen Hurts. I'm sure you might disagree with that, but I like talking about the quarterback and the offense, obviously. So I thought that was a good conversation.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest story of the season, how Sean Mannion handles this and what it's going to look like, what the offense is going to look like. And I'm not a fan of just making them what Nick Sirianni talked about at the meetings yesterday, play action, making him turn his back to the defense. I'm like, what are we doing? I'm lost. My hope is that's off-season talk, and it's harm to doing that in the spring and trying to improve that aspect of the game. No harm in that. But when the season starts, you got to build the damn offense around the quarterback and the players you have. That's why I don't. That's why I bring up the Larry Karras story. I don't like this declaring what you're going to do, and not that Sean Mannion has done it. We haven't even talked to the guy. I don't believe he's going to do that. I don't. But you have all these people saying this is what he's going to do. This is, and again, I'm Larry Karras. Yeah, you don't even know what the players he's going to have yet. You know the framework. Jalen's going to be there. Saquon. You don't know if AJ's going to be there. You don't know what the tight end room is going to look like. If it's Omar Cooper instead of AJ Brown, that's a big difference. You don't know what the offensive line is going to be from a health perspective. To say you're just going to play Kyle Shanahan's offense, I don't like that philosophy at all.
When are you going to get a chance to talk to Sean Mannion?
Soon, OTAs. This is not abnormal for the Eagles. They've always done this.
For the Eagles, no. Feels like for the rest
for the rest of the league, yeah. But there's a lot of people like they're hiding him. No, they did the same thing with Kellen Moore. Same thing. They don't have to do it, so I don't like doing it. And to a certain degree, and I get it from one standpoint, like Christian Parker, when he got the Cowboys job, the Cowboys are like, and he says, are you going to sign Nakobe Dean? Well, he's got nothing to fucking do if they're going to sign Nakobe Dean. Now, they'll ask him, but Sherry and Steven and Will McClay and the Eagles don't want Sean Mannion to get those questions. Like, is AJ going to be here? They don't want him getting those type of questions, which is understandable.
They can PR him up, though. I mean, they just did it with Howie Roseman and Nick, No,
I know. I think it's silly, but I'm just giving you their thought process.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We'll see what ends up happening with it. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'm intrigued by the whole Sean Mannion thing. I mean, I can't say I'm confident in it, but I don't know how anybody could be. The guy hasn't proven anything yet. But I think one day Sean Mannion will be a good coach in the NFL. The question is that going to happen in year one? That's a tough thing to do, and that's where I think but that's where my concern lies. Not in that I don't think Sean Mannion is going to be capable, just in that for a team that has expectations like the Eagles do, are you going to be able to realize those expectations with a guy who's essentially learning on the job for the first time, which is a big conflict to me.
Yeah, well, I definitely think you're going to have some learning on the job aspects to it. I think anybody who doesn't believe that is kind of pie in the sky. There's going to be some growing pains. And how does not only Sean Mannion how does the organization handle it? Because they haven't shown a ton of patience in the past. So, yeah, that's why I think that's by far going to be the biggest story of the season. And it's going to be interesting at the bare minimum. That's good for me. Could be interesting good, could be interesting bad. But I do think the ceiling is still there as a potential Super Bowl contender, but I think the floor is much lower than it has been over the past 4 years when we knew this was going to be a good team, just a matter of how good. If we wake up in week 18 and this team is 8-9, it wouldn't shock me.
Well, if they're 8-9, I'll tell you this: I don't think the offensive line got much better.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. The floor.
Yeah, but no, I agree. I'm saying that, but that's my expectation. The offensive line, plays well, and we've talked about that a lot. I mean, I feel like Sean Mannion's going to look pretty good if the offensive line plays well.
Yeah. I think everybody's going to look pretty good. I think that's the whole crux of it. It has been for years.
Farzi's comments on Jalen, I appreciate the comment of he's the guy who's kind of been here through it, and he's been to 2 Super Bowls, and I think that's all fine and well. But I do think we'd all be fools to act like we haven't seen a change in his game. We have seen a change in his game, and is that on him? I don't know if it's on him. I'm not even saying it's on him. You said it's on Saquon. I agree with that. Obviously, you add a guy like Saquon and you run for 2,500 yards. That's going to impact the way that the ball, is spread around the field and who has it more and who accounts for it more. But I do think, Jalen Hurts' his impact on the game is going to have to be bigger this year than it was last year. He's going to have to play better, and I don't think that's a controversial thing to say.
No, sure. Well, the whole offense is going to, and he's part of it, except for Devontae and maybe Tyler Steen. Because he wasn't part of the regression, but more obviously because he didn't play in 2024 and he played in 2025. So everybody's got to improve, including Jalen Hurts. But I do think one part where I did disagree with Mark on is the got to get the running back involved in the passing game aspect of it. It's not Jalen Hurts' strength, again, square peg, round hole. And B, it's not Saquon Barkley's strength. He's not Brian Westbrook. He's not Shady McCoy as a receiver. So unless you want to get Will Shipley involved, which I don't think too many people do, I don't see it. And that's kind of what I'm pointing about with Jalen, the overriding theme of I do not understand. After watching this guy play, I agree with you. Look, the +1's got to come into it. He's got to play better, but he's got to play better in the framework of what he is as a player, not do other things that he historically hasn't done consistently. I don't agree with that. He's got to get back to what he does well at the highest level. And to me, that starts with the +1 in the running game. It doesn't even start with the passing game. He's got to be that threat, which opens up everything else.
I agree. We'll see what ends up happening with that, Johnny Mac. All right, 24 days out, or 23, is it 23? 23 days out now, from the NFL draft. We get closer to that. Jeffrey Lurie. John, any idea what time Jeffrey Lurie will speak today? Is that probably not?
Later. No official time yet, but later. Obviously, they're we're 3 hours earlier, so it's going to be at the end of the meeting. So whenever they wrap up, Jeffrey will do it.
We'll see what he has to say today, because it should be interesting. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts here on a Tuesday edition of Birds 365, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, meetings will adjourn today. Then everybody will be back in Philadelphia. The 30 visits will start to ramp up. Not a ton of time. They had a couple Max game. There's going to be a top that don't know if it happened yet with Max Ionacre and also the Texas A&M tight ends, who Ian Cummings mentioned, I believe. Nate Borkircher. So a bunch of tight ends as well. And obviously offensive line. But that'd be a guy that's a guy I'm a little scared of, to be honest. Not only from his name, but I just think he's very, very raw prospect. And that's a guy I don't want to take at 23. Somebody that raw. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that one. All right, Johnny Mac, good show, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 and see if the Eagles make any more draft-proofing signings today. They've been on a run of doing this. Yesterday it was Chandler Martin. Is that it? Chandler Martin?
Yeah.
Chandler Martin, 2-year deal. So we'll see. Johnny Mac, great show, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, see y'all. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jim Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show today. I want to thank everybody for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Appreciate all you guys for being here today. Last day of March. Holy mackerel. This offseason is fucking flying. The summer is flying. This year is flying. These months are flying. These weeks are flying. Man, I can't get ahead here. And every time I blink, I'm like, holy shit, we're already there. Damn, we're already there. I mean, I got so much stuff racked up to do. We will see. One second here, reading something. Mayan, what's up, Mayan? Jason 18, what's up, man? It's Jason. It's unbelievable, dude. I swear that they've made it go quicker, dude. They turned 40 seconds to 60 seconds, I think. I don't know what's going on, man. The time is going by too quick right now. Time is going by too quick. What's up, Jerry? Zander, can you ask J-Mac, is there other players who had Jurgen's injury totally healed? It's a good question. I'll ask J-Mac about that. He does seem to be more optimistic on Cam than he is on Landon. So maybe, but who knows? Mayan stopped flying to lower his carbon footprint. Mayan, you got to admit that's a good one. All right. He said, Michael says, your logic here stinks, Jeff. You pay a guy a shit ton of money to basically just stay the same. I don't think so. You pay him to push himself and get better. I don't know who you're talking about there, but I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at all. I want guys to get better for sure. Is Jeff Lurie going to sound old when he speaks? Who knows? He's an older guy. How old is Jeffrey Lurie? Jeffrey Lurie, age 74. He's not that old. 74. There you go. I'm making my older listeners feel younger. 74, not that old. 80's not that old. How many of you are going to live to 100? I'm going to try and live to 100. You think it's possible? M. Reyes will tell me no. M. Reyes is the one who's telling me when I hit 30, I'm going to like fall off a cliff. I'm like, all right, Reyes, relax, guy. Big Mike says, Z, lower back surgery is no joke. I had surgery 2 years ago, and I'm just starting to get back. Mike, I believe it, dude. I believe it. I believe it. My back already hurts. Mike, when I get the new place and I'm moving in, I'm getting a standing desk. I think I got to do it. I'm going to hate it. I'm telling you now, I'm going to fucking hate it. But once I get used to it, it's worth it. I can't sit in these chairs anymore, dude. I work too many hours. If I sit in these chairs 16 hours a day for the next 20 years. I'm cooked. I'm going to be cooked. I got to stand up. So I'm getting a standing desk. It's going to suck. I might get one that I can go up and down. So when I do the shows, I can sit, because am I going to talk standing? I don't know. Manage the shows. I'm always searching a bunch of different things. I'm always multitasking when I do these shows. I got to produce. I got to set everything up. I got to cut the clips. I got to do everything. So I can't just sit there and be the show host like some people can. It is what it is. Reyes, screw you, Reyes. I'm done with your ass. Rasputin says, my family either died from alcohol in their 40s or lived to the late 90s. Think I made it over the alcohol hump, but my memory is faltering. Ras, you're good, brother. You're good, brother. You do not fall off a cliff at 30. I know, 18. I got to start standing up, though. Reyes, fuck you, Reyes. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, soccer. My pops uses a stand-up desk. He likes it. I just have always struggled to work standing up. But, my back is oh, man, my back already hurts. I hope I don't need back surgery. Not all standing desks are created equal. Good idea for your back. Get a good one. Timothy, what do you got for me, bro? What's the best standing desk? I will spend the money. I use my desk every day. I mean, it's worth it to spend my money. I probably spend more money or more time at my desk than anywhere. I spend more time at my desk than in my damn bed. Best standing desk. Vernal Executive Standing Desk. It's $779. It's actually not too bad. It's kind of sharp. Vari Desk. What do you guys got? Give me some standing desk ideas. Vari Desk. All right, I see this one. Tax write-off? I mean, KCA, you tell me. I'm a business and I'm buying a desk for my home office. What are we breaking news here that's a tax write-off? I mean, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? I've had to significantly decrease my write-offs because, when I'm getting married now, so obviously things come into play where I've played this thing, and most business owners do it, where, it's like the tale of two things, right? You have, on one hand, you maximize your deductions so that you can limit your tax exposure. That's one side. The other side, you have life, where you might have to get a mortgage. You might have to, show income, a lot of income in some areas. So in 2025, I told you guys I did my taxes. Well, with all the thing, I'm getting married, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to make sure my wife can retire. She won't have to work, stuff like that. That means I got to show a boatload of income for when we get the mortgage or whatever, whenever we buy a home. So now I had this massive, I already handled it, but this massive tax bill. I'm like, man, this is brutal. This is brutal. But you got to do it, because if you show too many deductions, then it's tough for lending. Lending is built for W-2 employees. It's not built for self-employed people. It is what it is, though. I'm not complaining about it. Take a fat ass whack to the government. That's why Secunda. Where are you at, Secunda? You want all these taxes, Secunda? Are they doing anything? Yeah, I got a good one, Rasputin. I like my new one. My old one was great, but he's older now and he's really sick. So he was basically out of it this whole tax season. Just buy the home outright, Pietis. I'm not ready to do that, bro. I'm not ready to do that. I don't know what you think I am. I'm not ready to do that, brother. No way. So I had a fat tax bill. Onward. I am set up nicely now, though, for the future, which is a good thing. Good thing. Doing S Corp, stuff like that, so that I can make it a little more simple. Complex, but simple at the same time, if that makes sense. Don't forget, Z. BG's got a press conference at 11 from Arizona. Nice. Very good. What's he talking about? I guess his future. Let me look this up here. I don't want to do that. Well, it is what it is. All right, we'll see. Pietis, I'm well aware of what I need. Thank you, bro. I'm well aware of what I need. I got a stand-sit desk. I almost never stand. Go full stand if you want to stand. I know, Gary, that is so true. I'm just going to end up fucking lowering it and never raising it up. That's funny. Pietis thinks he's breaking news. You need 20% down. I actually don't need 20% down. The mortgage industry has changed a lot. They want you to go like 5%. I'm like, oh, I want to go 5% down. So I had a hefty chunk, but I don't think I'm buying yet. I'm not ready to buy yet because I'm not. If you don't stick in the home you buy for like at least 5 years, it's really not a great use of funds, really. So. FHA, yeah, I could do FHA. Rasputin, they're very FHA's not really good for me with self-employment. You got to kind of be a W-2. It's a lot easier. But I don't really care either way. I have a lot of different ways to get approved. You can use DCSR loans. I use bank statement deposits. There's a lot of stuff you can do. Senor says, can you talk more about your AI setup? Which ones you're using? Senor, my AI setup is deep, brother. It's fucking proprietary. I'm thinking of licensing it out. My AI setup is badass. I am proud of my AI setup. It takes a lot of time, but I am proud of it. I am very proud of it. Which ones you're using? I use basically everything, Senor. I'm connected to all the models. I'm starting to build local models. So I launched the local model on my home studio, which I don't have like an NVIDIA or anything like that yet to really ramp up the local models, but I'm doing small testing on local models. I use mostly Anthropic is the best model right now for, reasoning and stuff. So that works best for me. People say the new OpenAI model is good. I used it for a little bit, and it just did not work well for me at all. I really did not like it. It was not fast. It was not smart. It did not have good context. It did not, its recall was horrible. So Opus right now, 4.6 is the best one for me. That's what I use as my main model. If my local models get up to snuff, which is going to be hard to do. I mean, think about it. These companies are spending billions of dollars to train models. If that ever gets up to snuff, then it'll save me a pretty penny. I use Perplexity Computer here and there. But overall, my own systems seem to be a little bit better overall. Claude is really good, though. Really, really powerful. I use Claude Code a lot for a lot of my back-end my back-end website building and stuff like that. So resources I use more Claude Code with. But the thing that I don't see any other AIs doing that I built in-house was my pipeline system for my shows. Like you see a lot of AIs that are doing, you can talk to chat, you can build a website, you could do all these different things. But at the end of the day, I don't see any of them that are taking the amount of content JAKIB is producing, which is 6 hours of live streaming a day, 6+ really. I mean, I've been live for 2 hours, 10 minutes this morning. Celia will be live for 4 hours. That's 6 hours plus every day. And it cuts it out across, cuts my long forms, cuts my guest interviews, cuts short form clips, cuts shorts, cuts articles. I mean, every live show JAKIB produces turns into 35 pieces of content. 35 pieces of content gets syndicated across the website, across the main YouTube channel, across the Clips YouTube channel. So to have a system that takes my live form shows, cuts them into that, does it properly, puts everything together, it really is a help. And then I have my main back-end operator is still Marie. She's phenomenal. I don't know if Marie is listening, but she's excellent. So I still use her for all my thumbnails and stuff. So That's the only other human element I have outside of Cilio, John. My dad manages a lot of the sponsorship stuff. I manage obviously all of the setup on everything. That's really the only thing I have, but it's getting pretty big, pretty deep, which is good. Yeah, Senor, I like Perplexity Computer. I have it, but I already spend a lot of money on my other models. My API fees are getting up there pretty good. I'm probably spending at least $1,000 a month on AIs, so it's not as much about being cheaper, like some people are like, oh, AI, allowed me to fire people and get cheaper. It's not really about being cheaper for me. It's more about my output has drastically improved. I have the Clips channel. Here's a little inside baseball business for you guys. I had the Clips channel, which launched in January. On January 8th was the first metric day. All right, I believe. Let me look. January 8th. Yes, the first day that the Clips channel got views. All right. And it's already up to 600,000 views in the last 90 days. It's got over 10,000 watch hours. It's already approved for the YouTube monetization partnership program. So it's already earning revenue, additional revenue on top of the content we're creating. So it's added a stream of revenue for me that I've never had before. I've never unlocked before. And it's basically just taking our content, sharing it out to what seems to be a different audience than our main JAKIB channel, because our main JAKIB channel is built on the algorithm for long form. We've always been a long form content thing. Our average view on JAKIB main channel is 27 minutes, which is absurd, by the way. 27 minutes is our average view. On Cilio show, it's like almost at 55 minutes. So you take that, and now we've reached this Clips channel. We've grown a lot over there. We already have 1,480 subscribers, to almost 1,500, over 10,000 watch hours, and it's already earning revenue on a daily basis. So, that's straight output, from the same content I'm already creating, and by the time we get to the season, where's that thing going to be? It's doing well in the off season. We're in the middle of March or end of March. Where's that thing going to be, for the season? That's going to be big. So just different things like that are really helping, so we'll see what ends up happening with it. But yeah, no, it's definitely powerful. It takes a lot of time, though. I vehemently push back on people who think of AI as like, now I don't have to do anything. It's like, dude, you know how much time I spent training my AIs, and they still fuck up so much? So that's awesome, Jerry. That's fire. Built a PC out. Is BG coming back? I don't know. When's he set to speak? 11 a.m.? Was Jody Mack? No, Jody Mack wasn't an AI bot. Jason, there's nobody better at it than me. I'm telling you right now. I take pride in my AI prompting. I have skills built, so I build skills to prompt. It's one thing to just like prompt. It's another thing to walk through a process of what you want to accomplish and then put it into a skill that creates the prompt that knows how to speak to any given model. So Anthropic is a different model, and you want to put different things ordered properly to get the right outcome, versus OpenAI might be different. So that's a deep thing for sure. AI bubble about to pop. What does the bubble popping have anything to do with me? I use the models. I didn't start an AI company. I mean, if the models are there, the models are there. That's why I'm training local too, mine. Training local models on my Mac Studio. I really should have got 128 gigabytes of RAM. I got 64. I wish I fucking upgraded it. Ugh, I wish I upgraded it. But then I would have needed to go back to the M3. I wanted to get the M4. Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I have some of them, 18, but I'm more focused on building my businesses, dude. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to become an AI prompt engineer for another company. Like, I'm going to build my businesses. That's what I'm going to focus on. I'm also ADHD, so it's like anybody who's ever used AI knows if you're ADHD, you can literally just go insane. You can just go insane. 64, I know, Tyler, you're telling me. 64 ain't shit. That's not true at all, MRays. I don't think you understand what a local model means. That's not even slightly true. It's like the entire purpose of building a local model is that you're not hell-bent on the other servers. Wait a minute, what are you smoking over there, Reyes? What are you smoking over there? Now, I've never tried those KCA, but I could. Have you guys seen it, dude? You know what's bothersome, but is something that I have to consider because it's very real for my business. Like, I use YouTube a lot. Like, I tell you guys, I'm not a huge TV or movie watcher. I watch a lot of YouTube normally, and I like to watch, cars and stuff that I like, but also stuff that like I learn history. I like history. The amount of AI content on YouTube is alarming. I mean, it's like every fucking recommendation is an AI video, and sometimes it's okay, but like sometimes they suck. And then I also look and I'm like, dude, how far are we? Because AIs can vastly outperform humans. It's just a reality. If I can sit here for 18 hours and make, let's say, 20 YouTube videos, and AI can sit here for 20 hours and make 2,000 YouTube videos. So the production is always going to outpace that of a human. What's that look like in 5 years? Is there a need for human? I mean, I don't think the human connection will ever go away. Will you guys ever be able to talk to an AI like you talk to me? I don't think so. Maybe. Will it be as enjoyable? Will it be as entertaining? Will it be as, will you be as committed to it? I don't know. But making AI content is going to have to be something I start doing. And I don't know if that even means Eagles content. I just mean other stuff. I've thought about doing other AI content, but I don't know. We'll see. That's something that's pretty interesting to me, using Kling and VO and all these different things. So Reyes, open your ears, Reyes. I literally just clearly stated that. God, Reyes, you numbnuts. Reyes doesn't fucking use his damn brain. Yeah, I've seen those, Senor. Those are pretty crazy too. But there's also a world where Reyes is wrong in that local models obviously are always going to outperform. They're spending literally billions. I mean, Reyes thinks he's breaking news here. Company spends hundreds of billions of dollars on models, and Reyes tells me it's better than the local model I'm building on a $5,000 computer. Oh, thank you, Reyes. How could anybody have ever computed or put that together? Man, you are a genius, Sam Reyes. Idiot. But anyway, there is a world that exists where when the cloud models get to the level that they're at, and you use something like Carpathy's, this guy who's out there with this genius like developer, he's got this thing called auto research where it basically just like teaches itself. Well, if the information is out there and the AI models can scrape it, you could, in theory, it could get to a point where local models learn so quickly they get to somewhat close to that level. Now, it's not to say that they're ever going to be at that level. There's obviously always going to be, an advantage for a company that has hundreds of billions of dollars to invest in. That's their entire business model. But can I get an AI model that can learn everything about the JAKIB data? Look at all of my videos. I have 14. How many videos do I have on the JAKIB channel? 14,000 videos. Can an AI model scrape all 14,000 of my videos, look at the Eagles data, look at the information, scrape the internet, learn what works on YouTube, learn what works on JAKIB, on the JAKIB channel, what works in Eagles land, and build for that? That's very likely. Very possible, too. Very possible. Senor, look up Carpathy here. I'll type it in the chat. Look up his auto research. It's incredible. It's really for local model running. It's not for like AI models running or cloud models, but it's Andre Carpathy. He's like a Slovakian guy or whatever his name is, but he worked with OpenAI for a long time and he's gone out on his own. He's released some open source things. Look up Carpathy auto research. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's incredible. So definitely something worth looking into if AI is something you're dabbling with a lot. Zander is a nerd. Yeah, I am, Fredo. I love being a nerd. I love being a nerd. But all right, guys, I got to run. I got some shit to do. I appreciate you all being here. Hit that like button. 23 days away from the NFL draft. Going to be interesting. All right. Going to be interesting. So appreciate all you guys listening. Hit that like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES, Eagles.